paper has been manufactured in the last 2,000, 3,000 years, to where it is modern day today, and how paper is being manufactured in modern day Europe as we move forward. So my name is Joe Domeyer. Domeyer Straße, Lager, Domeyer am Boden. I started working for this company in 2016, and I went over to Germany to visit their mill, and that's what I found. I found my family name in the city, right next door to where the mill was at. And I decided this job has to be something. There's a sign or karma there. But this city is right next door to Einbeck, or Dassel. And Dassel, Germany is where all of our paper is manufactured. We have been manufacturing paper in Dassel, Germany since 1584.
For some reason, it reminds me of Leader.
It what?
It reminds me.
Well, that's what I'm wearing.
I know.
So in Dassel, Germany is where the mill had started. And the reason it was situated there is not only was it a good place to brew beer like the slide you saw before, it's a great place because of the pure water that is in the area of the mill itself. We are a paper mill that is off the grid. What I mean by that is we look at our energy sources for our mill, and our mill uses energy from solar, hydro, and wind power, all within a natural reserve area. So 95% of the mill's fuel is coming from off-the-grid sources of energy in our area. We also have an area that group of what we call the Green Rooster Initiative. So you'll see here, I'll present some papers that are natural lines, which is going to be agave paper, it's going to be hemp paper, it's going to be bamboo papers. And these papers are, and the sugarcane is our new one, these papers, 5% of all the proceeds will go into animal wildlife funds or worldwide revegetation funds in Brazil or South America. Right now, I think in the last 2 years, it's up to $200,000 that has been donated to wildlife funds. Now let's get into paper education. Paper, as we know it, the name paper, comes from the word papyrus. And papyrus is a form of Egyptian paper in which they take the papyrus reed, slice it, and hammer it down into small strips, and then they laminate those strips together with water and the paste that's being created when they're hammering it down to form a papyrus paper. So many times we look at paper and we think, well, paper is from China, is it not? And no, it originally started, the name paper comes from papyrus. Today's terminology for paper, though, is that it's a maturated vegetation, meaning that it's been shredded fibers of vegetation. So it might be cotton, it might be tree pulp, it might be agave paper. This, for instance, China in 105 AD is where it was developed, the original style of paper that we see today and touch and feel today. So when you start looking at paper and paper manufacturing, this here, for instance, is maturated mulberry. So mulberry is actually a bush for the silk industry and the silkworm. So you can imagine the silk industry in 105 AD. Someone finally decided we need to have something to do with A, these leftover fabric pieces, and B, these mulberry pieces. So they maturated them, blended them up, put them in water, and made a sheet of paper out of them. It was also a military discovery, because when you think of grabbing tablets or grabbing messages back and forth to the front lines of the Chinese wall, it's heavy, so it became to where they needed a lighter form of communication as well. This is how most folks assume when you say mold-made paper. And this is actually in a modern-day Japanese plant. This is actually called washi. And what washi paper is they'll take that maturated mulberry fibers, blend it together with water, and then run it through screens on a frame. And those screens, they'll go multiple times over and over and over to where they'll get a sheet of paper with it. And if I went back, go back here. So in this particular case, they have the screens set up, and then they're adding flower petals, and then they're adding daisies and other types of material and byproducts in that paper. So this is all decorative paper being made. These are still family units in Taiwan. Taiwan is still family units making paper. When they've finished making paper, they'll set them out to dry. This happens to be a drying station in India, where a lot of handmade textured papers are being made as cotton, but they'll dry them out in the sun on these screens. If you can imagine the size of these sheets of paper, 40 by 60 or more. So that's where our paper is being done currently, even the way it is. But this is the history part of the paper. So how did it make the path? From 105 AD all the way up until 1800 AD, we really had the silk train was moving along in Europe. So you'd find occasional folks, whenever they'd get that paper, they'd call it rice paper because it came from China in most cases. So these papers were being imported along the silk train. But something happened in 705 AD. We come to actually manufacturing it. The Syrians, lo and behold, pirated a silk train from one country to the next. And in that group of people running the train, or part of the train, were Chinese paper makers. These Chinese paper makers were then put to work in the Syria Middle Eastern area, and Syria became the next mecca of paper and paper manufacturing in the world. So in Syria is when they really started finding different techniques of doing it in mass production. And it eventually migrates through Northern Africa, up through Spain, into Italy, Germany, and then in 1806, Henry Fourdenier develops a piece of equipment that modernizes the entire paper making world. It's called, and obviously the name of the machine is actually known as the Fourdenier paper making machine. Believe it or not, we still use, not just in our factory, but go to Wisconsin to the paper mills up there, go to northern Maine, they all still use a paper machine that they call the Fourdenier because of its fast way of processing. Come on in, we're gonna have a lot of free samples. 1806 becomes a stroke of genius in that we talk about the maturated pulp. That pulp goes down in through, comes out onto a flat fabric sheet called a felt, and moves along until the water drains out, and at the end you're going to have a sheet of paper sitting on the top of that felt. So no longer are we taking it, dipping it, shaking the water out, dipping and shaking the water out. What do we need to manufacture water? Well, excuse me, manufacture water, that's easy.
I'm going to be back. I just want to take a call.
What do we need with paper and paper manufacturing? We need pure water. So the limestone pure water that we get from the mill really comes in from the farmlands underneath spring wells, and then we actually clean it up when we're done with the process, cleaner than what it came into the mill at. So if we had pesticides in that water, or we had manure waste possibly from farm animals, that's all being cleaned up prior to sending it into the Ilm River, which is in the Solon region that we work our mill in. Cotton. So now we're going to start going into how paper is physically made. So we know what the mill is. This is a modern day mill now. So I want everyone here to go ahead and grab first a cotton ball. Squeeze it, feel how lovely it is. Oopsie. These are a lot different than the one you might buy or get at a craft store. Because these actually came from a cotton farmer in Georgia here.
Oh, nice.
It's called Cotton Man.
Cotton Man?
I bought them online.
Nice.
So these are natural cotton balls. So if you touch it and feel it, what do you feel in it?
Seeds.
It's real bumpy. You know, you think of the cotton balls when you buy them at a Michael's or when you see them decoratively. They're usually just a pure puffy ball. Well, the seeds are what are extracted from that cotton ball. So if I reach into here, I can pull out a cotton seed. So that little seed there, and I can hand these around if you want to hand them through the group. So these seeds are what Hahnemühle, crane paper, Arches paper, Fabriano paper, anyone who makes a cotton paper, our industry, the art industry or the paper industry, is using a byproduct of the fabric industry. Because the rest of this cotton ball, once the seeds are out, doesn't come to our mill. The rest of that goes to the fabric industry, and that's where cotton is being used primarily.
Did you use the seeds? Is that what they make it out of?
So what we make it out of is the fibers surrounding that seed. So if you take a look at that seed, there's fiber all around it, and they still are very long fibers when you start stretching it out. And then the content of the seed itself has fibers in it that they can use it as well. So they can crack that open and soak it open and use it as well. The other thing that they'll use that for is once we get our fiber off of it, it'll go into cottonseed oil.
Oh,
So
nice.
they'll use it for cottonseed oil, or they'll plant it right back into agricultural land. So I ask you to take your cottonseed home, and next spring, throw some in the ground. Let's see what happens.
Oh, I was just gonna draw with it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Use it like a brush.
Oh, you could, yeah. Actually, you could soak that and use that, or even that as a sponge, almost like a.
Use it as a.
Yeah. So.
I do watercolor, so.
Yeah.
That would be kind of cool.
So we keep this.
So what would happen if?
Over process the paper. Because if you look at a paper, she had asked a question about what if we use the real fibers from that cotton ball. Well, once you start going out like this, you really look at almost having to, when you want to make a paper, and you remember you're throwing it through a pipe and then you're throwing it through a little nozzle. You can't have these too long. So what we would end up doing is, and I'll show it here when we go into the paper making process, there's a machine called a Hollander. And a Hollander can be used a variety of different ways, but a Hollander in the mill, in a modern day mill, takes those fibers that are too long, because there might be a paper or two that we want a very short fiber to use. That Hollander, if we blend it long enough and chop it long enough, will be short enough for us to use for very, very fine paper.
So it couldn't use the special.
Correct.
Or special products.
So different lengths of fiber will give, so it's a great question on the idea of what do you do with extra long fibers. Again, we have to process it. So in many cases, you're actually going to make the paper more expensive because you have to go that extra processing step. So cotton linters, and you can see there, that's buckets. Again, I bought these, again, from Mr. Cotton or Cotton Man here in Georgia. He sold me a whole bag of organic seeds as well, so those are all organic.
Cotton has a lot of pesticide as a crop.
Yeah, we'll go into the whole, when we start talking about the different environmental sustainable products, why cotton, to be honest, in an artist's point of view, is not necessarily the best paper for the environment as a whole. We love it as cotton. I mean, here's the difference between, so for instance, this is an 1860s version of a newspaper. That newspaper is bright white today, as we see it. This happens to be when the word newsprint came out, and we started using wood pulp to make paper out of for the paper industry or newspaper industry or even mass paper industry. You can see it's turned yellow and brittle. This is a paper from 1944, I believe. So it becomes brittle. So that's an alpha cellulose paper or wood pulp paper. So with that, what I'll do now is just make sure everyone gets a chance to touch and feel. This is a bark from a poplar tree. We've got some over here too.
Pass this around.
And this is my lovely assistant, Rick.
Hello, Rick. Oh, thank you. That's beautiful. Oh, sorry.
So when you look at it, this is a birch bark, but most of the wood pulp that's being used in paper today is either wood pulp or pine tree. So those are the two major pieces of wood or shredded pieces of wood that are being used to make paper. And then what we do with it is, if you see here, there's a word there called lignin. And what lignin is lignin's almost like a glue within the wood itself, or within the wood fibers itself, that it will bind those fibers together. What we do, lignin is the acid. Lignin is the no-no in the alpha cellulose paper. So we want to get rid of that lignin. So we remove the lignin from the fibers. So now you have an archival paper that's going to last as long as cotton, and bright and white as cotton. Other products we make, he's back at it, bamboo. So everyone's got some, this is actually a bamboo leaf that when you look at it, you go, hey, not much. So the wood fibers, or the stalk fibers of a bamboo plant, are what are being used in the flooring industry, the furniture industry, et cetera, et cetera. So the shavings, the wood shavings, the leaves, the vegetation off of that plant become paper fibers. They also get used in the fabric industry, because if you notice, you can get bamboo sheets. They're all a variety of different softnesses as well. But it's amazing what you can get out of a bamboo, and the sustainability of a bamboo. Bamboo grows about 3 years to maturity. A pine tree and or a poplar tree takes 13 years before you can harvest it. When you cut down a tree, it's done. When you cut down bamboo, 3 years later, it's ready to cut down again, because it grows right back. So the sustainable fibers of the bamboo, the hemp, and the agave, and now sugarcane, which will be our next one we'll introduce in 2023 to the fine art world. They have very low pesticide, very low agricultural carbon output. If you consider the fact that you don't need to plow up the land, you don't need to plant the seed, you don't need to worry about the bugs and insecticide and everything else like that. So these sustainable fibers, including wood, are actually much better for the environment than cotton can be. You had mentioned before, cotton itself takes somewhere around, I think, 200 to 300 gallons of water for one plant to make it from seed to maturity. Then it's planted or pulled, and then the cycle starts all over again. And you got to go through the agricultural planting and what have you. So cotton as a whole really leaves a very, very sizable carbon footprint. The other thing about cotton, in some cases, we use responsibly harvested cotton. There's certain Eastern Bloc, old Russian countries that actually have human rights issues going on, where cotton farmers are being, or cotton individuals and workers are being brought in for very, very cheap labor and very, very bad, poor work conditions. So we get our cotton usually from India or the United States. In most cases, it's the United States. So. We make our cotton, or our bamboo, in two different styles of paper. And I do have samples at the end of the workshop here. So these two samples will be a mixed media, a heavier paper for water media, for acrylics, for gouache, etc. Or we have it in a drawing and sketch paper. So the bamboo will be in two different forms of mediums for you.
What's the weight of the
Not this one.
The weight of the bamboo,
permanent paper, or do you not do it that
the
way?
mixed media is 265 grams, which is roughly 130 pounds. And then we have I believe I'll have to look, but I believe the drawing paper is an 80 gram drawing paper. We make it in a beautiful book and journal as well. That we've got one on the display out there. Yes.
Do you do art?
What's that?
Do you do art?
Do I do art? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you have a preference in
Well,
which?
again, what I do is, in most cases, I don't do art as in gallery showing stuff. My background is more illustration art, but what I prefer is just a cold pressed watercolor cotton.
Okay, yeah.
At this point, I've not experimented enough with some of these that are literally new and within the last 18 months or so. Come on in. Free paper samples. Agave is our next paper that, when you think about it, it's coming off the tequila industry. So when they harvest this plant every 3 to 5 years, they're taking the leaves off of it. These are just artificial ones because traveling from Minnesota to here with a real agave plant is difficult. So there's a few different ones. So they'll cut these large blue stems, so there'll be a blue agave, a variety of different agaves they'll use in the tequila industry. The hearts of that will go into the tequila. They'll literally burn it. They'll roast it for up to a week at times and then extract the fluid out of it. But the rest of the stems and the leaves, because they're full of moisture, they will get used in the health and beauty aid industry and the paper industry. So the fiber from this is called sisal. So if you see the word sisal on something like a sisal rug, it's made out of the fibers from the agave plant. Our agave, we make it in one product and one product only, and that's going to be the agave watercolor paper. Surface sized and internally sized. It's a beautiful paper. It's got an oyster shell feel to it. Very, very, not a delicate paper.
Like a Yupo?
I'm just trying to think of the correct term. I would say eggshell finish to it.
But it's not delicate, it's harsher.
It's actually, well, every one of these papers we blend a little cotton in with. So this will be, I believe it's 70% agave, 30% cotton. And the reason we do that is to give it strength and to give it a certain flow on the brush. If you did just straight agave or straight hemp, it would be a very rigid surface, and your brushes, you'd lose their point very, very quickly. The actual brush would eventually, the points would wear off.
Well, the brushes, the points of order.
Yeah. So hemp paper. So hemp paper, we all know hemp has become extremely popular in the United States within the last 5 years, 10 years. But most of the hemp, these are nice little plastic jokes. And I do have, if anyone wants, I've got some little hemp stickers somewhere around here. I think they're in a packet.
It grows like a weed.
It grows like weed. It grows like weed. So the nice thing about hemp paper as a whole is most of the core fiber of it, this stuff grows tremendously fast. The Declaration of Independence was printed on hemp paper, created on hemp paper. The Gutenberg Bible, its original was done on hemp paper. So hemp has been used for thousands of years.
So hemp really has an actual use, all right.
Yeah, way prior. In fact, the primary use for hemp today is two things. Roping, like twine, so when a farmer's baling hay, some of that's hemp twine. Or it's fabric. So hemp fabric will be used as well. So those fibers are extremely strong in the hemp fibers, and they're long. When you pull a full strand off of one of these, you've got a foot and a half long fiber. That's it. So hemp, we're only making in a drawing paper or sketch paper right now, and that's they believe a 90-gram sketch paper. But it's nice in that the pad itself is 80 sheets of paper, so you get a lot of paper in that one pad. Sugar cane will be coming next. I don't have samples of that yet. I have it in the digital printing paper world right now. If you wanted to go and print digital printing paper to one of your local output people who are doing digital photographs, they can buy this right now. In fact, most of them have this in their ammunition already to be able to print on. Our ultimate goal as a company is to make sure that we are responsible to the environment.
So for the sugarcane paper, is that, does that have a sheen or anything to it?
No, it doesn't. No, in fact, again, the sugar cane, I believe, is actually a mixture of like an 80-20, 20% cotton, 80% sugar cane. And you have to remember that, again, we're using not the core pieces. The way sugar cane is processed, they literally squeeze out the core.
So it's the exterior.
It's the exterior or the remaining fibers after the sugar or the sweetened juice is poured out of it. take sugar cane and roll it and squeeze it and extract all the juices. That goes into the sugar
So it's the
process.
residue.
Yeah. And what's that? To make it white. A lot of that residue is missing.
Do you get it from Florida, or does it come other places?
Most of our sugar cane is going to come out of areas like Dominican Republic and other tropical locations. For sugar cane, we do get some yet from Hawaii, although Hawaii, most of their sugar cane is no longer, they aren't doing the sugar process anymore. Most of America's sugar even is beet sugar from sugar beets up in North Dakota and South Dakota, Minnesota. So how do we make the paper? We start with linter sheets. So when the cotton mill is done pulling the fibers off of this, they're creating large sheets where all it is cotton fiber and matted down into a sheet form. So this is called a linter. So these sheets are just large sheets of fiber that we will then turn into a paper. You could use that as a paper itself, but it would be very awkward in the sense that it'll just absorb all the liquid right away without any sort of processing. We talked about the Hollander. Inside this wooden wheel, or inside this box, is a wooden wheel, and that wooden wheel is cutting up fibers. It's got blades in it, and it's slowly but surely making those fibers smaller and smaller and smaller. So if we need to make a fine grade paper for maybe a stationery, we can run it through the Hollander to get those finer grains when we get that pulp. Yeah.
Is there a person or people that like try new fibers from different plants and they just continuously trying different trees and plants?
Well, I mean, we don't necessarily at our mill do that. We're constantly looking for more larger produced substrates or materials or sustainable fibers.
Mhm.
But I knew of 10 years ago a company called Ox Cart Paper. And what this gentleman would do is he would sit on his farm, and depending on what fiber was coming up or what weed was coming up, he had 2 or 3 acres of just CRP land, or conservation reserve land. He would harvest certain plants, dry it out, bleach it out, and then make paper out of it.
Cool.
So it might be one day dandelion, and then the next day it might be wild rose, and then the next day it might be foxtail grass. So it was a very unique company. But
Cool.
you can make paper almost out of any maturated, shredded vegetable matter when it comes right down, especially on the leafy and the fibery items. So once we have these linters, this is the manufacturing process. So we'll start those linters. They'll come up this conveyor belt, and with that conveyor belt, you'll see they drop off into a large blending mixture. So this is where water is being added. And right here, you're probably looking at 60% water, and the rest is paper fiber. Materials, cotton, or bamboo, or alpha cellulose. But it's also the time when we start adding some of the other items that you might find in your papers. So your first one's going to be calcium carbonate. And this takes the paper fiber and encapsulates it. What that means, or why you want that, is that if I take this paper and I frame it, and the paper sitting next to it has got acid in it, the calcium carbonate is going to protect your paper because from the acids that are outside in the world. Okay? So calcium carbonate is there as a defense mechanism that we put into the paper. Then we also do what's called sizing. Again, it's really difficult, but you can tell the difference, can't you? White powders. So sizing is being used to control absorption in the paper. So when you see an internally sized paper, it's this being put into it in its liquid state, or its liquid slurry state. And then this is also where we would, if we wanted to make a colored paper, we would add the dye. When you make colored paper at a mill that's the size that we are with the equipment that we have, you'll make your lightest papers first, and then make your darker paper, finishing with black paper. And that's why sometimes when you go to a paper rack, you'll find that your black paper is more expensive, because that's when they have to shut down the machine when they're done with that and clean it. And it'll take about 10 days or so to clean that machine 100%. percent so that the next batch of white paper they make doesn't have black fibers in it. So it's a profit, or a process. Vegan, not a single bunny was killed in the process of our paper making.
That's good.
And the reason I bring that up is we've been vegan since 1965. And what that means is that all the glues, the sizing that we use, even in our binded books, none of it has animal byproducts in it. If you look at your different papers that are on the market today, if you're a watercolorist, you're probably familiar with Arches and Fabriano. Both those papers use sizing. One, however, Arches still makes their paper out of a gelatin-based sizing or a protein-based sizing. So it's it's an animal byproduct that's being utilized for that. Fabriano and ours are made out of a starch paper sizing. Now we get to watch a mill. This is actually, we talked about that fourdrinier. So this here is going to be nozzles and heads along the front here, and paper's going to get sprayed out into a pool, and along that pool it'll move as water is being drained out. The fibers will lay on the surface. This machine is going at about 130 meters per minute, so it's quite fast. This is a dandy roller. It's actually taking the water out as well. You can see water draining here. There's blow dryers trying to blow the water through it. And by the time we reach this end, you can see that there's paper formed right here between the blue and that white. This is paper. This is the background, or the felt that it is on. At this point, it's being separated from that original felt and getting onto a more textured felt, and that's where paper is getting its texture. So when you look at cold press paper, it's a specific felt that's being used. So later on down the road, it's going to have these heated dryers. These are all steam heated dryers or rollers. And as the heat goes past and paper goes over those rollers, that paper is beginning to dry out slowly but surely. If we want a hot press paper, we'll crank up the heat on those rollers and almost iron it flat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is this a smelly process, like when you go, where paper's made for
No,
paper mills?
yeah, and in fact, even in the paper mill industry, a lot of that smell, it used to be associated with the bleaching process. And so those smells, I grew up in Minnesota, and we have International Falls and Brainerd both have major paper mills. And you would go up to International Falls and you could smell something in your gut. It's just an awful smell. And usually that was the bleaching process. And what's unfortunate is that bleaching actually, the liquid from that would go back into the environment. It was a very environmental. So we have cured a lot of that already. None of it's being used. Now they call it hydro bleaching, which is basically the bleach sits here. The aroma of the bleach is what's being utilized to color that paper or make that paper white.
Is it chlorine bleach, or is it what other kind of bleach?
I'm not even sure the exact term for it's not necessarily a chlorine bleach, but it's a good question. I mean, some of the stuff that this doesn't cover, my talk does not cover, is the process from tree to our mill. So I still have more to add. It makes it nice because I have more stuff to investigate. So on that, you're going to see the paper being worked on a felt. You can come on in. Got free paper at the end. So this felt is actually, like I mentioned before, if this felt has a rougher texture, you're going to make a rough paper on it. If you're going to have a medium texture, it's going to be the cold press paper. And if it has a very smooth texture on it, it's going to get through a superheated roller and become a hot press paper. So now the mold-made machine. Mold-made machine is a little bit different. I'm going to jump to a different video on my laptop here that's not part of this presentation. So let me reduce. Come up here. That's full screen. It's not transferred over. Mold-made mill machine. So what will happen in a mold-made machine is the water's gonna come in here, and that's gonna be all mixtured with about 80% water and the rest fiber. And so you'll move through, and then there'll be a large vat with this rolling mold. We call it a paper mold, but that mold has a screen on it. And as that screen's turning in this water, it's picking up the fibers. At this point, when it's turning, it becomes a sheet of paper on the outside edge of this roll and moves on through the finished product or in the mill itself. So that's how a mold-made machine does its process. So with mold-made machines also, it goes very, very slow. So we talked about 130 meters. This goes about 30 meters per minute. Watermark is something that you'll find on most professional level papers. So with that watermark, you'll see there's a deckled edge at times. So this is how deckled edging is made. And deckled is that rough edge around the decorative papers or your watercolor papers. Right there. So there's two rollers. And when that paper transfers from the front roller to the back roller, it'll actually tear that paper. So you'll have a deckled edge on this side and this side, but then you'll have what's called a teared decal on the center. So showing you again the deckled edge is the two versions of it. This is a torn decal, and that's being a natural decal. We talked about the speed of the machine, and this is going to make sense in about 2 to 3 minutes. So we've got the mold-made machine, and it's just creeping along, and you can see it just creeping along there. So this is actually this is in our mill. Well, everything that you've seen here is actually our paper mill. And the four-denier machine is right next to the mold-made machine. So that four-denier machine is moving quite quick. So what I'm going to do here is spray, and then I'll talk a little bit more here. So I'm soaking these papers, and one of these papers you're going to find out is a mold-made paper, and the other paper you're going to find out is a machine-made paper. Take about a minute. So, the four-denier machine, we talked about how fast it is at that 130. So what happens in the four-denier machine is that paper is moving so fast that these fibers are all lining up with each other. That's what happens with a fast-made paper or four-denier machine paper. So this will be our Harmony paper, a Canson XL paper, a Winsor Newton Cottonin style paper, maybe the Canson Ball paper, machine-made paper. It moves through very, very fast. Doesn't mean it's a bad paper. It just means you've got to make sure to tape your paper down if you're going to do wet-on-wet painting on it. So if you look, you pass that one around. I mean, it's just fun to see how quickly that example shows people what really happens with a cheap paper versus a machine-made or mold-made paper. Now those mold-made machines, your Fabricant or Artistico is made on a mold-made machine. The Arches is made on a mold-made machine. Hahnemühle Collection is made on a mold-made machine. And you'll find Saunders as well will be making a mold-made machine as well.
So when you hang this up in a house, I've actually seen how it arches like this.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's awful when you frame it.
So
Well,
you
it-
staple it down, it still
yeah.
does that?
It
After
still
you soak
does
it,
that. It depends on the hole, the moisture in the hole.
Yeah, yeah. And paper as a whole is always going to be expanding and contracting. And so you've always got to make sure that. So when you talk about a mold-made machine, so remember, four-denier, pretend you're throwing sticks in a creek, and it's a fast-moving. Those sticks are all going to start forming in that same direction because of that fast-moving water. those same sticks in a very slow moving area or a lake, you're gonna have all those sticks crisscrossing. So what happens in a mold made machine, they move so slow that those fibers become intertwined with each other to create the mold made technique that you'll find. So there's the example. I've got a video of it, but again, there's an example of what happens with mold made versus a premium or a lesser grade for veneer made paper.
I was just surprised that you know the difference. Now I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. It's one of the most best visuals that one can give on why why do you pay a double the price for a cotton mold made paper than an alpha cellulose machine made paper? That's why. There's a much more work that goes into it in a slower process, so you can't produce in the same amount of time. So I bring the last screen up here just to say, recognize the label. The folks here at Binders, we've only been in the United States since 2016. Our first shipment arrived in 2017, and Binders was my first customer in the United States
Yay.
for this product. So Howard and his team saw value in a new brand of watercolor paper because we started hearing from other watercolorists that the competitors are having sizing issues, they're having this issue, or the pricing issues. So you're going to find that our 100% cotton, this is the label you really want to look at. If you're a watercolorist, this is our equal to or greater than a Fabriano Artistico or an Arches 140. It's about 20% less, and it's on sale today at 25% off of whatever the retail is. I believe the retail in the pad version is $25.
Does it come in a block too, or is it just paper?
That comes in both a block and a pad. But they're stocking currently only the 9x12. And then the other thing that we have at our table over here is a slew of books and journals.
Oh, I can't on that. I almost didn't even come in here. I was so busy there.
Yeah, so the books and journals, 100% cotton watercolor book, 250-gram watercolor, sizing on both sides. So if you want to paint on both sides and you're out painting, you can do that with this book. In fact, you can do that with all of our watercolor and drawing books because they have sizing internal and external.
Beautiful books.
And we also make it in a toned. So we have a
noticed
toned
that.
gray and a
And
beige.
beige for the skin color is so much easier.
It's great portrait paper, and that comes in both pads and in books, the gray papers and the beige papers. That's me 5 years old at my uncle's wedding. So, Prost all. I don't know if I was allowed to drink that. Maybe I was.
They probably let you.
So what I'd like to do now is field questions. What do you guys like about what you do currently? What papers are you using currently? I gotta be weary of time because I think they have another class starting here in 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Is Hahnemühle gonna do any like recycled paper or recycled?
We recycle our own papers.
Oh, okay.
So what I mean by that is any of the trimmings or the clippings or when you're running, those paper cutoffs all go back into our paper making process.
Nice.
We do not use other people's recycled goods because we can't have quality control over it.
Yeah, no consistency.
And they can say, oh, it's coming from here, or it's coming from here, or it's coming from here.
Gotcha.
Well, to go through our lab, every train load of paper that comes to us, or linters that comes to us, we literally make a mini a replica of each sheet of paper and then run it through a series of about 15 different tests with its pull strength, its puncture strength, its spec content, because cotton seeds leave specks.
Mm-hmm.
Every paper mark that you see out on the market, if you really wanted to get down close and stare at it, you're going to find little black specks because those seeds have a hull. And those hulls are very difficult sometimes to remove, but there's a tolerance. It might be 2 specks per square foot, and those specks cannot be larger than a specific. So we literally go into the microscope, count the specks per square inch, count the size of the specks, and then if that paper does not count or doesn't work for us, it goes back or gets sent to a different mill for another person's seconds or thirds.
Nice. Thank you.
I get really particular as to weight and the feel of the paper when I draw.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the weight itself, in most cases, it's scaled by what we call a Bristol weight. So when you say it's a 500 gram paper or a 640 gram paper or a 300 pound paper, it's basically 500 sheets of apparent size, and how much do those 500 sheets weigh? That's where you determine the poundage of a paper or the grammage of a paper. Now, when you go to 20 pound paper and it's a copier, why is that different? Well, it's a completely different industry, completely different measuring scale that I couldn't explain to you. I think ours is a 32 by 30, like a 32 by 49 size parent sheet, 500 of them weighed. That's what we're gonna have as far as 140 pound or 200 pound or 500 pound. So, yes?
Does it need to be, the paper need to be soaked and then stapled onto a board, or it's not necessary for that?
She asked if the paper needs to be stapled onto the board or if it's necessary or not. If you're doing wet on wet technique, I would suggest you use a tape it
The painter's tape.
with even use a washi tape. Even painter tape as a whole. Washi tape by far is and or medical tape.
Oh, really?
Your medical tape is an acid-free tape. The only reason I suggest that is even when you say artist tape, you gotta ask yourself, how long is that tape gonna be on there? If you're someone who paints quick and you tape it and you're done in 2 hours or 3 hours with your paintings, I mean, guys like a Bob Ross that are painting so quick, I mean, Maria Rakovich, we've got even here locally, I think here, Forbes, I'm trying to remember her first name.
I'll take weeks.
What's that?
I'll take
Catherine.
weeks.
Yeah, Kathy Renault Forbes. She paints fairly quick and fast. Fine, you can use the blue painter's tape or but please don't use frog tape. Use the frog tape. That's actually got a chemistry in it that when water hits it, it binds even tighter.
Oh.
It might pull off a wall, but it might not pull off a
I usually use drafting tape.
drafting tape is wonderful.
It's more
I
expensive.
think I need
than-
to, I'm getting eyeballs over here.
Yeah, okay.
Is there another class?
Oh, yeah.